hot days can really test our tempers. It can really start to create what the word that I like to use is vexation. So one of the most important things to do in the summer is to think about actually doing less, because the expectations of what we achieve in a day is now very high. If we do have a busy day, that we first of all try not to, if that's possible. So try looking at your diary to start with, thinking, what am I doing tomorrow and how much of that do I actually have to do? One of the big pitfalls that we make in the summertime is we put ice in our drinks. No, ice is really, really bad for you. You should never, ever, ever put ice in your drinks, and you should never eat or drink anything that comes straight out from the fridge. Hello and welcome to Own Your Health with me, Katie Brindle. Now, before we get started on my top tips for navigating this summer, please do remember to rate and review me on Apple Podcasts and also on Spotify, because it helps me help you. And also, if you are on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube, then please do leave your comments so that I can answer them and keep the conversation going. So, without further ado, today's episode is all about summer, because summer is upon us, and summer is obviously such a wonderful season that everyone really looks forward to. But it's not without its pitfalls, and it's not without information that you need to know about to navigate this wonderful season. And I intend by the end of this episode to leave you being a right summer know-it-all. You're going to have all of the solutions to everything that you need to know about this summer that you can impress your friends with and tell everyone what's going on. So I think the first thing to say about summer is that from the Chinese medicine angle, summer is fire element, okay? Now, fire is warmth, the energy connects, it goes up, it creates heat, it brings light. We need to absorb this very strong yang energy, because fire is yang, summer is yang in nature. It's expansive, it's expressive, it's warm, and it's vibrant in nature. So there's a tipping point between the two, because if we overdo it, then we overheat, we overburn. We can then start to get issues of sort of vexation and agitation and exasperation, and then the liver gets involved, and then we start getting moody and irritable. And often, if we are ladies of a certain age, that can then get exacerbated by hormonal imbalances, which then actually turn one of these wonderful seasons into our worst nightmare. And then in comes the sweats, in come the mood swings, and everything else. So it's very, very important to start, first of all, understanding that summer will bring with it emotional changes. Okay, so the first thing to understand is that hot days can really test our tempers. Okay, it can really start to create what the word that I like to use is vexation. Irritability, anxiety, anger, mood swings, but also listlessness and a sort of sense of gloomy. So it's very, very important that we keep ourselves on an even keel. Now, how do we do this? Well, what's happening is if there's too much heat inside the body in the first place, and the case is that there is, because we live in a society where we're very much focused on doing and achieving, and we're all having to move around quite quickly to get ourselves from one end of the day to the other, because the expectations of what we achieve in a day is now very high compared to, say, 100 years ago. Now, what happens is that creates an energy frequency of action. So instead of kind of going tom-ti-tom-ti-tom-ti-tom, we're starting to speed up. So we're going like this, and so things start to kind of move. If you then whack in an outside air temperature and hot days of sunlight, that then starts to heat things up even longer or even faster. So you end up a bit like a sort of boiling kettle, where everything starts to feel like you've got steam coming out your ears and you feel overwhelmed and hot. Now that will affect our moods. Okay, it will affect many aspects of the body, but the first thing that it's going to do is affect our moods. So one of the most important things to do in the summer is to think about actually doing less. Because actually, if you think about it, the body does actually quite like to rest at this time of year. If you notice nature is busy synthesizing at this time of year. If you look at trees, which are a very good sort of benchmark for this, their leaves are out under the sun. They're kind of going, oh, like this, just absorbing yang energy, oh, like this. And no one's really rushing around. So it's very, very important that if we do have a busy day, that we first of all try not to, if that's possible. So try looking at your diary to start with, thinking, what am I doing tomorrow or next week? And how much of that do I actually have to do? Do I have to go into the workplace? Can I do my job from home? Can I move around less? Can I perhaps look at some things that are in my day and try and underload it? Can I take some things out? That's the first thing. Very, very strict diary management. Okay, that's the first thing. If that's not possible, and often it's not, then the next thing to start to do is go, where can I have breaks? And one of the most important things to have in the summer is a siesta. I mean, there are reasons why people in Southern Europe will have siestas in the afternoon. It's the heat of the day. The hottest time of the day is not midday. It's actually at about 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's when the heat has kind of started to rise back up again from the land. So actually having a siesta after lunch is a very, very useful self-care practice. Now, if you're sitting here saying to me, that's not possible, I'm in an office job and I can't do that, then the other time of day, especially in the summertime to have a rest, is actually at lunchtime. It's a sort of secondary moment. So if you have the opportunity to leave your workplace and sit outside in the shade, have some lunch, but then relax for perhaps maybe eating time is sort of 10 minutes, because people don't necessarily eat that much food in the summertime or any more, full stop, to give yourself 10 minutes to digest and then 40 minutes to relax is a very, very useful thing to do. So relaxation is key. Now, if you don't have an opportunity to relax in either a lunch break or an afternoon break, or indeed your job isn't in an office and it's not in a school, it might be in a factory, or it could be outside, you could be working nights, it could be all sorts of different things. We all have different things that we're doing. So the most important thing when we're not in a sort of normal sort of style job is to start to think about small breaks in the day and when can they be. So you factor them in terms of lunch breaks or an afternoon break or a mid-evening break or wherever a break is, but a break halfway through your working day, whatever time that is. And again, we go back to Mindfulness Bell, which is that app that I talk about all the time, where we allow ourselves to have gong breaks, okay, where you have that gong playing every 15 minutes to remind you to go back into a slow breath, because that slow breath will calm that fire down. So as everything starts to sort of heat up and warm up and starts spiraling outwards and starting to get us overwhelmed, the gong will remind you to go inwards and to cool everything down. One lovely, lovely slow breath as you linger at the top, and then you breathe out and you linger at the bottom, just allowing the body a moment of calm. So it just brings everything back and equalizes everything down. These are really important practices. Now, another really good Yang Sheng practice for calming the energy of the body and moods that come with it is soft body brushing. Now, soft body brushing is something I talk a lot about. We have a wonderful body brush on the Hey You method, which is very, very soft. If you don't have a soft body brush, you can use a soft flannel. That will do the trick. And it's very, very important that you follow the energy circuit of the body as you do it. You follow the energy circuits of the body. You take the soft brush or the soft flannel. You go down the inside of the arms and up the outside. You go down the outside of the legs and up the inside. And then you circle around the abdomen in a clockwise direction. You can use the soft body brush, which is ideal because it's got a long handle. But if you don't have one, just use a soft flannel and go in circular motions in those directions. It will help calm the body down. Now, let's talk food, because it's very important when we're practicing Yang Sheng, which is self-care, correctly, to not think that we eat the same thing all year round. We don't, okay? When we're doing this properly, we modify our digestive systems. But one of the big pitfalls that we make in the summertime is we put ice in our drinks because we're hot. So we go, right, ice. No, ice is really, really bad for you. You should never, ever, ever put ice in your drinks, and you should never eat or drink anything that comes straight out from the fridge. What we do is we apply cooling foods to room temperature. Okay, so that would be things like cucumber and mint are very, very cooling to our beverages. So water with cucumber and mint and a little bit of lemon juice is also extremely good for the body. And also watermelon is a wonderful cooling fruit to eat that cools the body down, that it's naturally cooling rather than exacerbating cold. And actually what happens when you put too much cold into the body, it can often give you very bad stomach pains and stomach cramps and bowel issues. Why? Because the stomach is naturally hot. Now, we don't want the stomach to get overly heated in the summertime, but we also, if we chuck loads of cold, like ice, into the stomach, it's the equivalent of putting a hot water into the fridge. The fridge has to work harder to maintain its existing temperature. So does your body. And what the body will often do is it will draw warmth from the lower part of the body into the stomach as a sort of Mayday emergency approach in order to keep the temperature balanced. Now, that in turn messes up the lower area of the body, which can mess up the bowels and also your fertility, and also your periods. So actually what happens is you can end up with kind of diarrhea, which is a common summer symptom, or exacerbated period pains because you've actually created cold lower down in the body. So it's very important to eat foods that naturally cool the system because they are energetically cooling, but at the correct temperature. So you feel cool eating them, like cucumber and watermelon, but they don't have that detrimental effect into the digestive system as they go in. It's also very important to limit greasy and spicy food at this time of year. And also bitter food is also a very good thing to eat at this time of year. So it's very, very good for sort of drying out dampness in the body. That's also really useful. Lotus is also very good. So lotus root is a very useful thing. So stir fries, I cook stir fries all the time, and I put lotus root. It's a very cheap food. It's extraordinarily good for the body in many, many ways. I could do an entire podcast on the benefits of lotus, but just take it from me, it's a good thing to eat. Lotus leaf and seeds are also really good for reducing inflammation. They're very good at calming the blood. They're very good at reducing heat, and they're very good at reducing high blood pressure. So as things start to kind of go up and out and heating and exacerbating, the lotus flower has a very good relationship to cooling it all down. Ginger is a very, very good food for eating in the summertime. It's extremely good for warming the stomach if you are overdoing it with the ice, or if you're eating things like cold sushi. Because the thing about sushi is that originally sushi would be made like direct. So you would go and you would eat it, they'd prepare it and you would eat it. Now we buy it from sort of chilled cabinets and go, oh, sushi, yummy. And it is yummy, but it's very important to eat the ginger bit. Okay, and the wasabi bit that go with it, because those two components of that food warm the stomach back up again. Because, or at least, I mean, don't leave raw food lying around indefinitely, but it's not a good idea to go out for your lunch, go and buy sushi, eat it straight away, go back for your lunch. You need to try and get it out of the chiller cabinet for just at least a small amount of time so that it's not really cold, because the food was never designed to be kept that cold in the first place. So it's very, very important to follow that kind of dietary advice as well. The other thing that I like to drink is white tea. White tea is very, very good for cooling the body at this time of year. We've got one on Hey You, which is a lovely summertime drink. White tea is the very, very tips of the tea plant. It's very, very light. And it's very, very refreshing. And it's a hot drink which has a cooling impact on the body. The other thing that I have is, rather than having iced water on offer, that I have a bottle of filtered water or a jug of filtered water where I've steeped mint leaves into the water so that the water is very, very full of the flavour of mint. So herbal waters are extremely good at cooling the body systems down as well. Now, another summer thing to talk about, sweating. Now, sweating is a very healthy practice, because what sweating does is it releases metabolic waste through the sweat glands, okay? So, and you get rid of toxins, and phlegm and dampness and coldness can all come out. So it's not a good idea to wear antiperspirants. Now, we were talking about this before we came on air, because few people in the studio were kind of going, okay, that's really interesting, because many people wear antiperspirants every day. So the first thing to say is, please be aware of the difference between an antiperspirant and a deodorant, because they're not the same thing. Okay, and often we don't know that. So an antiperspirant is a product which is chemical based, which actually blocks perspiration. Now, we've got to be careful about that, because whilst on the one hand, that might be great, I'm now no longer sweating into my shirt or whatever, is that actually, if you think about the fact that sweating actually is a detoxification process for the body, if you block that, all of those toxins that were ultimately going to come out through the armpits or the groin or anywhere else have got to go back into the system. And if you think about it, around your armpits are lymph nodes, and lymph nodes clean the system out, and lymph nodes use these areas in order to sweat, in order to release the body of the toxins that the lymph passages have been clearing up all the way through the body, through muscle movement and everything else. So again, if your lymph is overtoxic because your food is overtoxic and your body is overtoxic because it's stressed and it's not breathing in good air and it's over sedentary and it's not exercising correctly, then basically your armpits are kind of the last chance saloon for your lymph glands to kind of purge the body. And if you're sweating excessively, then it's likely to be that you're not actually managing your lymph correctly in other ways. So it's very, very important to not overuse antiperspirants. So the first thing I would do is swap a chemical-based antiperspirant for a natural-based deodorant. Now, there's a couple that I like to recommend. I think Sweet Bee do a really nice one, which is based with arrowroot as its main ingredient. I think it's a really good one. And also there's a really lovely brand that I talk a lot about on my website, which is called Ringana, and they do a lovely deodorant, which I personally wear, and I find it actually is extremely good, and it seems to sort of, it keeps everything in a very, very sort of healthy way. And the other thing that I like to recommend to people is if they are worried about excess sweating or smelling, that armpit detoxification is a really useful thing to do. And it's a very good time of year to start practicing this. Okay, so if you're thinking about sweating, again, Sweet Bee do a brilliant one. We sell it on the Hey You method, and they use a bentonite clay formula, which is mixed with other products as well. But bentonite clay is the main ingredient. And basically you mix it with into a paste, into a little bit of apple cider vinegar. So what I have in my bathroom is, as well as all my various ablutions which I buy, I have an old teacup which is broken, so I just use that. I've got an old silicone brush which is normally used in the kitchen, but I've basically bought it now. It lives up in my bathroom, and I've got a bottle of apple cider vinegar under my sink. So I use my sink as my self-care area, okay? And then what I will do is, in the wintertime, once or twice a week, and in the summertime, 2 to 3 times a week, I will detoxify my armpits. It takes about 10 minutes. So what I do when I'm doing it is I will do body brushing. In the meantime, I will do body tapping. I'll do body sculpting. I'll do another body care technique whilst it's drying on my armpits. But when you're using it with apple cider vinegar, it feels very, very zingy on the body, and it feels really, really cleansing and healing, and it is. And what it's doing is it's drawing all the impurities out, and it's working with the lymph glands to basically support the body. So what you then do is then you just wash it off in the shower, and it all just goes down the plug hole. And you should then not need to be reliant on antiperspirants or excessive use of deodorants to manage your sweating. It may well be, if you're an excess sweater, that you need to be doing this, like do it kind of, try 2 or 3 times a week. If that's not enough, try it every day, but just persist in it. And then do other techniques as well, e.g. body brushing. Now, for this kind of body, for sweating, I would use the harder body brush that we sell on the Hey You method. We've got 2. We've got a soft and a hard one, because at this point you want to open the pores, and you really, really want to encourage that the skin, which is a huge, great detoxifying organ of the body, is also allowing the body to purge, rather than only relying via the lymph glands and the sweat vehicles of the body. So that's a really, really useful thing to do. I'm just checking my notes here. Yes, so that's the main thing to do, okay, is body brushing and armpit detoxification. If you are a heavy sweater and you're in the privacy of your own bathroom, you can run around naked and no one's there, then you can also use the armpit detoxifying product on the groin area as well. It's a very, very good thing to do. Also, clay mud wraps are also, for men as well as for women. Yeah, mud wrapping is an extremely good way to detoxify the body. It deals with odor and it deals with excess sweating. Also, hot, cold showering is also an extremely useful thing to do in the summertime. So I will always start my shower with a normal temperature warm shower, and then I will change the temperature into a cold shower, and then take it back up into a low level warm shower as well, because that's starting to allow the body to detoxify. If you can embrace saunas and cold ice bathing at the same time, because lots and lots of gyms are now starting to offer this as part of their standards. So perhaps a jacuzzi or a sauna, if they don't have an ice plunge, then use the coldest shower setting to start to kind of get the body detoxifying that way. But part of body odor is connected to bacteria connecting itself to sweat. It is partly that, but actually a lot of the body odor comes from our body being imbalanced in the first place. So if we're finding ourselves excessively sweating, for us in Chinese medicine, it's a symptom that there's a deeper imbalance going on, and we need to be aware of that. And it's all about balancing the body with the Yang Sheng techniques that I offer you. So for anyone listening to this thinking, oh, that sounds like me, then always go to my website. We have a free 3-step plan to balancing your body, and it's a really easy way to start, okay? It's 3 simple techniques that you can do that will really start to make a difference and get you on your way to getting everything balanced. Now, we've covered some really contentious issues there, but let me now talk about sun cream, because sun cream is a massive issue and skin protection at this time of year. Now, I am very much in favour of natural sun creams. And by natural sun creams, I mean mineral sun creams. There are two which I like to use. Again, there's this brand Sweet Bee, which I love. I use a lot of her products. They're really good. But there's another one which I really like, which is called Green People. It's a really good brand, actually. I think Green People is a really, really good one. Before I go into the benefits of minerals, you've got to be very careful about toxicity from chemical-based sun formulas. And I'm fully aware about skin cancer. I'm fully aware about that. And there are advantages to wearing sun cream. I'm fully aware of that. But you've got to be aware that also if you're wearing chemical-based sun formulas, that often those chemicals are actually getting very quickly absorbed by the skin, and they can very quickly go into the liver. Okay, and they can go into the kidneys. And there's even evidence, which we can put up here to show, that there have been studies that show the ingredients in some of these products can end up in breast milk, in urine, and in blood plasma. So you've got to be very, very careful about what you're putting on your skin. In 2021, the Food and Drug Administration, they reviewed 16 ingredients, and they reported that only 2, which were zinc and titanium, were generally safe and effective in sun protection, and that there are 12 common ingredients which are not safe and effective due to insufficient data. So we've got to be careful about what we're doing. So I would very much suggest that you go down the mineral route, which basically reflects the sun off the skin. Now, what do I do for safe sun practice? Because I've got fair skin, and I need to be careful in the sun, but I also enjoy the sun. So the first thing that I say is that I wear UV protection via my clothing, and I wear a parasol. I use a parasol a lot, and I think UV parasols are a really, really good idea for summer sun because they look rather glamorous, but also they're very cooling as well because the UV protection gives a sort of shadow underneath. So on a very hot day, I put the parasol up and it keeps me cool underneath. I will go out in the sun early in the morning and last thing in the evening. So I will tend to follow Yang Sheng practices, which is one thing in the summer is that you tend to get up earlier in the morning. You just tend to need a bit less sleep. So often I'm awake at sort of 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. And unlike the winter, when you cannot crowbar me out of bed at that time of day, in the summertime, I'm actually kind of up and ready to go. So what I will tend to do is go out and practice my Qigong early in the morning in the early morning sunlight. It feels amazing. Absolutely gorgeous on my body, and the sun is very, very gentle. I will also do the same thing in the evening. I will go out in the evening. I'll eat outside if I possibly can. I will then go for a walk after dinner. I tend to not watch Netflix with Mr. Brindle on a summer's evening. We tend to sit outside. We tend to talk. We tend to chat. Just tend to kind of listen to podcasts and do. Oh, the screen's gone off. Oh, it's come back on. No, and it's okay. Okay. So I tend to go out with Mr. Brindle, tend to sit outside, listen to podcasts, do more sort of outside-based activities, read a book outside, and just absorb that kind of like low-risk sun sort of assimilation into my skin. So I find parasols really useful. I also, if a parasol's not practical, I have a UV hat. It's a big, broad, front-brimmed hat. I bought it on Amazon. It's from Asia. It's quite a useful one because Asian women tend to wear these hats a lot. So it's got a very, very big visor at the front. I wear that all the time in the summertime. And if I'm, say, going into the sea or anything like that, I will tend to, rather than slap sun cream all over me, I will wear a UV protection top rather than put sun cream on. Okay, so that's what I tend to be doing instead. So I'm kind of covering myself in UV clothing rather than UV products. And then I will save the UV products for when I absolutely have to put them on. I personally don't like the sensation on my skin very much, so I tend to limit it, but I address the issue in another way. So that's kind of that is really what I'm doing there. Then let's talk generally about sunbathing, which I've been sort of half talking about. So it's sunbathing actually in the correct way is actually good for you. Okay, now there's a heavy health risk that comes attached to that. That does not mean lying yourself out baking, sort of turning yourself over every 20 minutes in the baking hot Mediterranean sun for 2 weeks a year is a good idea. That is not a good idea. I shade bathe when I'm in a hot country. I shade bathe. When I'm in the UK, where I find the shade is a little bit too cool, and therefore what happens in the UK is often, unless it's a blisteringly hot day, you tend to need to sit in the sunshine because otherwise you're not quite warm enough. So what I will always have in the UK is a layer, opposite to what other people do. I have a layer and sit in the shade, and that feels really nice. In a hot Mediterranean country, I will sit in the shade in the heat. And that's the perfect temperature. It just feels absolutely just right. So I will shade bathe until it's safe to be in the sun. So you want to basically be in the sun first thing in the morning and last thing in the afternoon. And it is very, very useful to do this to basically drive away coldness and dampness that can often linger in the body. Now, my body naturally is cold and damp. And you will find many, many women up in the Northern Hemisphere with the kind of northern diets that we eat and we tend to be a little bit damp and cold as a sort of general rule. Now, there are loads of exceptions to that. But if you tend to be a cold, damp person, and you will know that because you will either A, feel cold, and you go, actually, I feel the cold, so that's you. And damp tends to be we put weight on easily, or get a bit gassy is the other thing. So it's literally kind of those are the two things. And what we often do, and often you'll feel the cold, you get frequent colds, you have low immune conditions or asthma, allergies, rhinitis, frozen shoulders. Those tend to be damp, cold conditions as well. So if that's you, then actually being in the sun is a very good idea. But it's important to make sure that you do not want to be overdoing it, because if you do that, then you're going to basically give yourself sunburn, and that's a whole other condition. But the other thing to say is that sunbathing on the back of the body is an extremely good yang sheng practice for those kinds of cold, damp conditions, because that is where the yang meridians are located in the body and they can absorb the sunlight. And it is a practice. But you can sunbathe the back of the body with clothes on. Okay, so you can keep clothes on in order to get the benefit of the yang warmth on the body. And if you're in a very hot country, it's a very hot day, you will get that warmth early and late in the day. Okay, so just kind of moderate that. And also walking or staying under the sun in the morning. So walking is also a very good activity to do first thing in the morning or in the evening. That's got extra benefits as well, because there's a saying in Chinese medicine, which is 100 steps after dinner equals 100 years of life. So actually going for a nice amble in nature or anywhere or in town or whatever you want to do, because you've got these light evenings, it's a very good idea. You can get extra steps in, because equally in the wintertime, you tend to find you do a bit less because it's dark and not so pleasant. Now, sunburn, which is a kind of different thing altogether. Now we've overdone it. So now what happens to sunburn is that that's a sort of damp heat that's then got trapped in the body, and that needs to be released. Now, what I like to do with sunburn is I use aloe vera, and I also use colloid silver. I find that very, very good for sunburn. Now, there's a brand called Active Silver that I really like. And again, we sell them on the Hey Method because I really like them. And they do a really beautiful aloe vera colloid silver gel, which I find absolutely brilliant for sunburn. Really, really effective. It's also really good for bites and kind of rashes, heat rashes, agitations to the skin, any kind of rashes, bumpy, lumpy, bitey kind of heat related things. That product I find particularly useful. And as well as that, then in terms of what we do on the inside is that we like to recommend pineapple or black cherry juice or a glass of water is extremely good at purging out this damp heat from the body. And it's also very, very good for inflammation. So again, please don't have that with ice cold water or ice, just have it at room temperature, but it's extremely good. Acupressure is also very, very good to reduce inflammation and pain of sunburn. So, and for clearing heat in the body. So we've also got these really fantastic magnets, which are these little body plasters with little magnets attached. And you can attach those to the body on the key points, which means you don't have to pay for acupuncture. You don't have to sit there sort of remembering to do acupressure either. You just pop them on and leave them there. Now, we have a whole fact sheet on sunburn. So to have a look at where those acupressure points are, then if I could just advise that you just go to the to the sunburn fact sheet, that will give you a very quick kind of overview. Go to there and that will give you the information that you need. But let me just give you a few lovely comments which have come in to give us to end on a warm fuzzy feeling. So Shoegal62 from Australia, she says, Katie is very easy to listen to and makes you feel like your health is in your control. That is absolutely absolutely what I'm trying to do. Thank you, Shoegal. So she loves listening to this with the interesting and informative podcast. Thank you. Laura Hornsby, 90 to 92, says, wow, Amber's coffee break clinic was so interesting. I felt sorry for the kidneys of the lady who was born on that particular day. Fascinating. I shall nurture my kidneys more. Thank you. So much information to give myself the best life I can. Wonderful. Maggie, she says, this hay fever episode is brilliant as my husband is suffering badly and just doing pressure points and sprays. So that's really helpful for you. So thank you guys so much for listening and taking part in this podcast. So please do rate and review and leave us your comments on Apple and also follow on Spotify, because it helps me help you, helps me reach a wider audience and to share this wonderful, precious information. Do also leave your comments and questions on TikTok, Instagram and YouTube, and we will follow this with another episode all about summer skin. So thank you so much for joining, and I look forward to seeing you next time.